Hey there, welcome to another episode of Monday Moments, the show in which we take a deeper dive into Sunday's sermon. My name's Travis. With me today again is Pastor Dennis. I want to thank you so much for being here. Before we jump into this week's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button. The bell icon next to it will get you notified every time a new episode is posted. So if you enjoy this, definitely hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's jump into it.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this past Sunday was kind of crazy. We had a lot going on.
There's a lot of moving parts, wasn't there?
It was a lot of moving pieces. Good Sunday, getting to see the kids do their worship dance was awesome. So I enjoyed it. It was a busy but a good Sunday. So that being said, I really enjoyed your sermon. You talked about the healing of the blind man, John chapter 9. And this is not really related to anything I was going to ask you. I just was an insight that I kind of walked away from was kind of the cool connection between the fact that Jesus healed a blind man and he said, go and wash in the pool of Siloam. And when translated, that word Siloam means sent. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, gosh, there's got to be, there's something there. And I, I don't know if it's just something that was personal to me. Maybe the Lord was just speaking to me, but it just how sometimes the Lord, when he tells us to go or he's sending us out or calling us to be obedient to something, he doesn't always reveal where it is that we're going or what it is we're going to be doing or give us all the details or all of the steps. He just says go. And the miracle of our eyes being opened happens in the obedience, in the stepping out.
Very much so.
And so there was just, that being said, I know that's kind of an aside. It wasn't the main point of your sermon, but I definitely walked away from that sermon on Sunday thinking, man, how many times do I wait to ask, God to have my eyes open before I step out in faith and obedience?
Yeah, it was also a very important place to Jewish people because it was that particular pool where the priests went and they gathered water for a particular offering.
Oh, wow.
And it was and it was recorded by one of the really ancient historians that there was never a greater time of rejoicing than when the priest brought that back. It was going to be a poured out offering to the Lord.
Wow.
So yeah, it's the whole pool. I've been there, and it's quite a walk downhill and uphill. And the fact that Jesus sent him there, just another part of the story that can be unpackaged at another time.
Definitely. So, well, one of the things that you touched on was the nature of religion. And, in the story, we see the Pharisees completely blind, ironically blind.
That's the end of the story, in fact.
Yeah.
You're blind.
Exactly. Yeah, they missed the miracle that Jesus did right there in front of them because all they could see and focus on was the religion that they had adhered to and the control that they wanted to continue to have. And so you had said the words, religion is always a hindrance. And so that got me thinking, and the first question I wanted to ask was, what is it about religion that always leads to it becoming a hindrance?
Yeah. Religion is not a bad word.
Yeah.
And religion in itself is not bad. Everyone has liturgies, whether it's the craziest charismatic situation you can find or the most staunch denominational ecclesiastic church you can find. Everyone has different liturgies. It's the way that we do things. And so consequently, what we have to be careful of is that the way that we express our worship, our love, our obedience to the Lord does not become the object of our attention. Yeah. And so, the famous words of my dear friend Rick Howard, God starts a movement, man builds a monument. There's what it is. Man builds a monument, and it soon becomes a mausoleum full of dead man's bones. So there you have Jesus, Elijah, and Moses on the Mount of Transfiguration. Disciples are invited along on this incredible moment in history, and their first response was, let's build three monuments. Let's build three churches here. Yeah. And not a bad response, but that's the problem, right. Because it's That's the original temple. Remember, was a tent. It was moving all the time, and so God didn't tell them don't build a temple, but the temple becomes the focus, if always, and because it's the way that we do life.
Yeah.
You know. So again, it's not religion, but it's what we do with religion.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. It's oh, we're seeing God do something. Let's camp out here, and we miss that time when God says, "Hey, I'm doing a new thing. Keep moving with me. Keep in step with me."
Yeah. The in the wilderness, the Jewish nation camped out until the clouds started to move.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know when the cloud's going to move,
Yeah.
but we need to keep ourselves unencumbered. And that's the biblical word, untied, not tied down to this world.
Yeah.
And the structures that we build, and we love those structures.
Sure.
It's in our human nature. So it's not, well, there's some people who are religious and there's some people that are not. No, we're all religious. Yeah. And we need to be very aware of how easy it is. Every one of us does it, all of us. And we just need to be so aware that we don't become so attached to our religion that we can't move on and do what God's doing. My dear friend David Ferguson, just keep flexing in the spirit.
Yeah,
flexing in the spirit.
That's right. You know. Pastor James shared with me. You could call it maybe an admonition, maybe a prophetic word from. I think it was Jeannie Mayo. It might have been somebody else. I don't remember exactly, but she was saying we have to be careful this was years back, but in the coming years, people are going to worship.
Yes, that was Jeannie Mayo in about 1998.
Yeah, and it's easy to see how quickly, like you said, it doesn't matter what religious background you're from. We can all have that tendency to want to shift our focus to something that might be good, but it's not Jesus. You know, it's not our relationship with the Lord. And I loved how you referenced Paul's words, the simplicity of the gospel. I preach Christ and Him crucified.
Yeah. That came after a painful experience.
Yeah.
That he drew it from, which is usually where we get our real revelation.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we kind of joked about how busy Sunday was, but being that Sunday was so busy and so full of good things, was there anything that you would have liked to talk more about that you didn't have time for?
You know, I think that we always have to keep our focus on what we are here for. And what we are here for is to fulfill the Great Commission through the Great Commandment. The Great Commandment is not just love your neighbor as yourself, but Jesus said, a new commandment I gave you, love one another the way I have loved you. Now there's a high bar.
Yeah.
That's the Great Commandment. And we don't fulfill the Great Commission without the Great Commandment. Yeah. The Great Commandment is to take the gospel to everywhere we go. And I still, it is so easy on a Sunday morning. And once again, this is not the fault of a particular person or a particular denomination or a particular group of people or a particular church. It's all of us. It would be so easy just to come, enjoy the fellowship, enjoy the singing, enjoy the worship, enjoy the word, and go home. But we're called to go. And I still am waiting for that time when our going will produce a great harvest. So, is there one thing? There are lots of poor blind beggars out there. And I know this. I'm not good at performing miracles. Okay?
Yeah.
Not been real successful there. I applaud those people who have that gift of miracles. Wow. I'm not. But what I can do is I can go and bring those to Jesus. And the church has got to come around, and all of the distractions, whether it's COVID, whether it's politics, whether it's doctrine, whether it's Christian nationalism, all of the things that are going on, which all have good pieces to them. It's a mixed bag. All of those things need to be submitted again by the church to the simplicity of the gospel. How do we get focused on what we're to do? Yeah. Because again, the tragedy with the blind man was that no one caught on to that. No one celebrated with him what God had just done in his life. Yeah. And we need to see what God wants to do, participate in that, because that's what he has encouraged the church and invited the church along to do, and then celebrate what God is doing. And it always has to do with taking the gospel. Yeah. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, kind of getting caught in the weeds of the non-essentials.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And how easy that can be for us. Worship wars is, going back to worship, right? Like that's another area I feel like it's easy for us to kind of get caught up in, which is really boiling down to our preferences. And we like you're saying, we're missing what God is doing and the essentials. If we're getting caught up focused on the non-essentials, we're missing the essentials. And that's, are we bringing people to Jesus? Are we bringing Jesus to people? So that's good. If there was somebody watching this video that is, maybe they watched Sunday's sermon, maybe they didn't. If there's a practical takeaway based on what you shared on Sunday, what would that be?
At one point Jesus tells a parable, and the parable in essence is this. The people who were equipped and invited, already apart, were invited to the wedding feast and they didn't come. Yeah. All kinds of excuses. And so what does he say? He says to his servants, you see, there's not just those who are invited who are ready to come. There's not just the one who is doing the invited, but right in the middle are servants. They're servants. And he says to his servants, go to the highways and the byways. In other words, the hedgerows. What were the hedgerows? The hedgerows were where the disenfranchised, where the homeless, where the people who had great needs, that's where they were. Go to those places and compel them to come in. Wow. We're the servants, and it doesn't mean it doesn't mean a particular population. We're to go to those who know they need Jesus, who are in trouble. The people who you live next to, who you know, because you can hear it going on, have a terrible marriage. The kids who are in the neighborhood, who are wandering around, and they love to come to your house because no one's home at their house. The coworker who's going through a divorce, the college student who's just trying to find their way, and what am I going to do while I'm here? Whoever it is, the high school kid who you're in class with, who you've befriended, it doesn't matter. Let's compel them to come in. That's our job. It's got to be our focus. When we do that, then all of the non-essentials, they don't matter anymore. But it's when we're not doing that we think that, if we would just do this, then people would come to Christ. Or if we just do this, then people would come to Christ. Let me tell you something. If we invite enough people who need Jesus to come, then they'll come to Christ. We'll see transformation.
Yeah. That's good. And that, reminds me of what we were talking about at the very beginning, not knowing where the Lord is going to send us, but stepping out in faith, being obedient, and allowing the Lord in that process of obedience and stepping out to open our eyes. For example, Jesus says, the fields are white with harvest, but the workers are few. Pray for workers. And if we would simply say, Lord, would you open my eyes to those who are around me who need you? And if we take that step, I have to believe that God's going to honor that, and he's going to open our eyes, and we're going to see people who have crossed our paths all the time, and we just never noticed.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the Lord is opening a door to this person that I never saw before. I never noticed that person before.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for taking some more time to dive into Sunday sermon. If you have not had a chance to watch Sunday's sermon, we will leave a link for that on our YouTube page. You can go and watch that. I highly encourage you to do that. It was a phenomenal sermon. Great conclusion to our 40 days of Sabbath. Next week will be our official end to our Sabbath celebration. It's been a great time as always. So thank you again for watching this episode of Monday Moments. Again, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that subscribe button, the bell icon right next to it, to be notified every time a new episode is posted. And with that, we will see you next week.
And don't forget, our Sabbath offering is next Sunday.
That's right.
And our worship night next Sunday evening at 6 p.m. in the sanctuary.
That's right. Thank you so much.